people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
How are you feeling with the return? When do you want to come back?
Huh?
When do you want to come back?
From next year.
Yeah? The plan is still Gervonta?
Huh?
The plan is still Gervonta?
Right now, the plan is the rest and all boxing business from New Year.
Vasyl Lomachenko is not pressed over a Gervonta Davis fight. It's not the motivating factor for Vasyl Lomachenko that it once was several years ago. Here today,
years later,
some people don't blame him, and really, I don't blame him. I don't blame him myself that all of a sudden,
well, now you want to fight Lomachenko when he's pushing 40.
It's very obvious to Vasyl Lomachenko, like it's very obvious to me and you, that what the Gervonta Davis people were looking was for an advantage of some kind. They wish to age him out. So if anybody's angry that Vasyl's not pressed over that fight anymore, they're angry that he won't allow himself to be taken advantage of.
He knows what you're doing, so does everybody else.
But does that then mean that Vasyl Lomachenko himself was being an opportunist years ago when he first targeted Gervonta Davis way back there in 2017 when he was only 23 years old? Is that what that was?
Isn't that taking advantage?
That depends. Was Floyd Mayweather taking advantage of Canelo when he fought him at that same age? Canelo was only 23 years old when Floyd fought him. Was Floyd taking advantage of Canelo? If you're now going to claim that Vasyl Lomachenko was taking advantage of Gervonta.
Trying to.
I don't think he was. I don't think you're trying to take advantage of a fighter, a young fighter, a strong fighter who's looking good and winning fights, and you want to fight him because he has a title. No, I don't view Vasyl Lomachenko wanting to fight a 23-year-old Gervonta Davis as taking advantage. But I do look at Gervonta trying to fight him now that he's older.
I do view that as taking advantage because you want a weaker version of the fighter, a more beatable, slower version of the fighter. That's what you were waiting for.
You were aging him out, and the entire boxing community knows you were aging him out. So when he doesn't let you take advantage of him...
Some people, though not all, but some people are going to be all right with that.
The issue is that Vasyl Lomachenko is still a champion here today. He is still a champion at 135 pounds, and with that comes the expectations for a champion, that you are expected to compete at a certain level
against a certain caliber of fighter, so long as you are a champion. And if you don't want to do that and live up to that responsibility, you may as well retire.
That's what you have to wonder about. I remember immediately after the George Cambodia fight, Vasyl Lomachenko was talking about retiring right after that. So if that's the kind of headspace that he's in,
why not just vacate? Why not just retire? You heard what he said.
Stands to reason. He plans on returning in the coming year. Who against? I'm not sure, as I am not convinced he would fight his own countryman, Denis Berinchyk, the newly crowned WBO champion. I don't get the sense he's targeting a unification match with that guy, Shakur Stevenson.
He's not with Top Rank anymore. He went to Matchroom, and he's set to make his Matchroom debut on the undercard of Beterbiev versus Bivol.
They have a 2-fight plan for him. If he beats Cordina, they want to put him in the ring with William Zepeda. Where does Vasyl Lomachenko fit into that picture?
He's still a champion at this weight.
Lomachenko versus Stevenson still is somewhat of a hot ticket. You can sell it. It's a unification match. It's still worth something.
And Gervonta?
It just doesn't seem like Vasyl Lomachenko is anywhere near as interested in that fight as he used to be.
But then what is he interested in?
If you've reached the point to where you don't get out of bed for that fight, which really is one of the bigger fights that you can have at 135 pounds, if that really doesn't motivate you the same way that it used to, what does? What will?
I'm not chastising him, I'm just left wondering, what is it that Vasyl Lomachenko wants to do next year?
Because he's not retired. He didn't retire. He doesn't sound like he plans on retiring. He plans on coming back. But coming back to do what? And with who?
Right after he beat George, he said he was playing with the idea of retiring. I guess he's put that on the shelf for now.
Saudi money. The Saudi cash injections to the sport of boxing might be a part of why Vasyl Lomachenko still lingers. He still sees opportunities out there, good ones, to make big cash, especially now.
Maybe that's what he has in mind.
The Saudis are making good use of a lot of the fighters and a lot of the familiar faces in the sport of boxing. Vasyl Lomachenko could be one of them. I haven't heard anything.
But you never know.
You don't. It's hard to know what to feel about Vasyl Lomachenko's aloof behavior, his stance. He's not letting himself be taken advantage of, though at the same time, what is he gonna do?
Elsewhere in the division.
Revisiting a set of comments that Gervonta Davis made about another champion at this weight, Shakur Stevenson, WBC champion, he didn't even have power at 126 or 130 or none of that. How can you stop people that can actually hit? What are you going to do when you actually get hit?
Ask Floyd Mayweather. He wasn't big on power. He was your mentor for a number of years. Didn't you learn anything from him?
Shane Mosley hit harder than Floyd Mayweather. Miguel Cotto, Manny Pacquiao, all those guys, they hit harder than Floyd Mayweather. Canelo Alvarez hit harder than Floyd Mayweather, but who won?
Floyd Mayweather.
Power. Power by itself does not always decide the outcome of a fight. You'd think that Gervonta Davis would know that, but power seems to be all he really has on Shakur Stevenson. That in terms of nuts and bolts boxing,
Shakur might be better. You guys already know what I think.
Now thinking about this fight and what remains of this year, who Gervonta Davis is likely to fight, because it's not going to be Shakur. He's likely going to fight Rayo Valenzuela before this year is out.
That's what people are saying. That's what people think.
It's what I think. It's just a question of where does he fight him? Does he fight him at 135 pounds in defense of his own belt, or does he move up in weight and challenge Rayo for his?
If he wins?
See, that's where the Shakur Stevenson stuff comes back into the frame. If Gervonta Davis fights Rayo and beats him later on this year, what's he gonna do next year? Who does he fight after that?
Loma doesn't seem too pressed about him. We just talked about that.
He himself doesn't seem too pressed about fighting Shakur Stevenson. There's always the WBO champion, Denis Berinchyk.
The least talked about champion at this weight, but he is a champion and he would be a credible scalp. For me and my money, Gervonta Davis's first credible scalp since moving up to lightweight.
You don't think Rolly and Isaac were credible?
No.
Yuriorkis Gamboa? Hector Luis Garcia? Ryan Garcia?
No.
Denis Berinchyk, I think, would be the first credible scalp that Gervonta Davis would have fought at this weight if he were to fight him.
The problem?
Nobody knows him. That fight wouldn't have much of a profile. No, the Shakur Stevenson fight would have more of a profile than that fight.
I feel like the walls are closing in on Gervonta Davis.
Closing in the sense that he's running out of people on his own side of the street to fight. You already fought Frank Martin. You might be fighting Rayo next, but after that, who on your own side of the street is there?
Nobody.
Denis Berinchyk would be a credible scalp for Gervonta Davis, but there is no demand for that fight. There's more of a demand for a Shakur Stevenson fight. So how much longer is he going to ignore him?
Recently there was talk that Turkey El Sheikh wants to lower the price point for his pay-per-views down to $15 to $20 worldwide.
And I noticed a stout observation from boxing insider Rick Glacier, who said, with Turkey El Sheikh drastically dropping the pay-per-view prices for his Riyadh season pay-per-views, that could well put Al Heyman's PBC Amazon events into further demise. We'll see if Al Heyman drops the price for PBC on Amazon pay-per-view events. This is not good for the PBC.
Gervonta Davis's last pay-per-view didn't sell all that much.
I didn't expect it to. His next pay-per-view, I don't expect that to sell all that much either, much less now that where you're going to be charging somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 for one of your cards, Turkey's cards are between $15 to $20.
For better fights than your fights, better undercard.
So how much more difficult does that make the PBC's job when Turkey is basically undercutting them? The pay-per-view market is not now paying out what it used to. Making safe money for Gervonta is going to become more difficult.
Where Shakur has aligned himself with Matchroom and Riyadh Season,
there's money in a Shakur Stevenson fight. You know there is. But how much money are you gonna make fighting Rayo?
If you fight him and you beat him, you knock him out, because he's been knocked out before. He got knocked out by Edwin De Los Santos. If you do that,
what then?
What now?
Questions that need answers at 135 pounds. And finally, in men's light heavyweight news, the ongoing situation involving Dmitry Bivol and his ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, Ekaterina Bivol, who says she's Team Canelo. She said that there is just two people who want Bivol. It's Canelo and me. So please write to Saul Alvarez, because when we go in the process of divorce, I told my ex that, you know what?
What?
You became such a devil after Canelo, so maybe you won in the ring, but in life, you lose. You lost, because this money and this power, it made you crazy. So please write to Canelo. We are the winners with him.
So she says.
You can take Ekaterina's comments about Dmitry at face value. You can believe her if you want to believe her.
I don't put it past Dmitry Bivol that maybe he's a jerk outside the ring behind closed doors, because who really knows who these people are and how these people are with each other behind closed doors? The thing is, that applies to Ekaterina just as much as it applies to Dmitry.
Who knows who this woman is behind closed doors, or how this woman is behind closed doors? That before you decide to take her comments at face value, maybe you should ask some questions of her.
Dmitry Bivol has not engaged Ekaterina publicly or addressed her defamatory comments. He's not engaging her.
Perhaps that's the smartest course of action. Don't feed the bear, as they say. How do we know that this isn't a money-hungry woman looking to shake down her ex-husband now that he's made all that money from the Canelo Alvarez fight? She mentioned it. She brought it up. I found that interesting.
I noticed.
This thing between Dmitry and Ekaterina has been going on for a little over a year now, since the Canelo Alvarez fight. Immediately after it, all of a sudden she starts making these defamatory claims, defamatory comments. The timing for all of this was impeccable. That now you want to separate, now you want to divorce after he made all that money.
She wants a divorce.
Timing is everything, ladies and gentlemen. Timing matters quite a bit, folks, that it wasn't up until Dmitry made all that money with Canelo that all of this starts. Now, it could be the way that she says it is, that the guy changed after he made all that money, or it could be that she's projecting, that she's the one that changed.
That's just as likely. We don't know these people.
That she has spent over a year now going after Dmitry publicly, who has yet to engage her publicly and yet to address any of this. Maybe it's because none of the media members have the nerve to ask him about it.
The gall.
Doesn't really make for good table talk, now does it? Or boxing talk in the boxing sense of the word, though this very much affects Dmitry Bivol's boxing career ahead of what could be the biggest fight of his career, the Undisputed title fight with Artur Beterbiev. It matters that she's going after him. It matters that she's defaming him publicly and whether or not that affects him.
In camp?
My honest opinion? I don't trust Ekaterina. I don't trust what she's saying. I don't trust her. The timing of it all is suspicious to me. You waited up until he made all that money with Canelo to decide that Dmitry's a jerk and he's a bad guy and you want a divorce.
You want that guy's money.
Forgive me if I'm curt, but if you want to know what I think, and you're here, so I'll assume that you do, that's what I think. I think this is a shakedown.
A relationship, a marriage that may have already been on the rocks for one reason or another.
It's quite convenient that it might have all come to a head and reached a tipping point as soon as he made all that money. Now, I reiterate, it could be the way she's saying it is. That after he made all that money, maybe he changed. Maybe he turned into a jerk.
Or maybe she's talking about herself. Maybe she's projecting. Maybe she's the one that changed.
Now she wants a divorce to get this guy for half of everything he's got. The money he made with Canelo, whatever money he's making in Riyadh Season and fighting in those cards.
That's just as likely.
Hell hath no fury, like a woman scorned. Isn't that what they say?
Maybe he's a prick. Or maybe she's a bitch.
I wouldn't put it past her. The way she spent over a year now attacking this guy's character. You can settle these affairs behind closed doors.
File your divorce without going to social media about it. Instagram of all places.
You can file your divorce without going to Instagram about it. You go to Instagram about it, it's because you want to make it public. It's because you're trying to cultivate public favor by publicly defaming him.
A nasty divorce. There are so many these days.
But it doesn't strike any of you as odd, this methodology from Ekaterina? Why she's doing this? Is she in pain? Is that why she's doing this? Or is she on the hunt?
Because it's not necessary that any two people that are going through a divorce have to make it public, have to make it everybody's business the way she's making it everybody's business.
You have to wonder what effect that has on his psyche ahead of what could be the most difficult fight of his career. Because that was already a difficult fight without having to go through a nasty divorce while you prepare.
The fight.
If Dmitry Bivol wins a fight and becomes undisputed champion, I don't think he moves up to cruiserweight. I don't think he goes anywhere. I think he sits right there and reigns as that division's undisputed champion because Dmitry has neither the size or the punching power, I think, to bang and hang with the big boys at cruiserweight. He doesn't have it.
What do you mean he doesn't have it? Zerto's up there. He's a champion up there.
Yeah, I know, and he beat Zerto, and I understand all of that, but I just don't see Dmitry campaigning as a cruiserweight, not if he wins. There's so much money right there in a potential Anthony Yarde fight, Joshua Buatsi fight.
Callum Smith. And what about Canelo? What about a Canelo-Alvarez rematch? Last week, Canelo
Alvarez entertained the possibility of returning to the light heavyweight division for a Dmitry Bivol rematch. And you have to figure, Dmitry already being in bed with Turkey El Sheikh and fighting in Riyadh season shows, that rematch could be even bigger than the first fight was.
Of course it will.
If Dmitry beats Artur Beterbiev, having already beaten Canelo Alvarez, the rematch would be bigger than the first fight for bigger money. Bigger money for the both of them.
Imagine if Turkey pays for it.
This is all on the premise that Dmitry Bivol wins next month, beats Artur Beterbiev. If Artur beats him,
that's different.
Artur's a bigger guy than Dmitry Bivol. I want to say that maybe getting down to 175 is a little bit more difficult for him because he's a bigger guy, not in terms of height and length, but width.
He's a big guy.
He's already been there and done that with Anthony Yarde and Callum Smith.
I don't think a Joshua Buatsi fight is enough to keep him there. Canelo didn't mention fighting Artur. He mentioned fighting Dmitry again, but he didn't mention fighting Artur. I'm not sure that's an option for him.
I feel like if Artur wins in October, he won't stay at light heavyweight. That's it. After that, he would move up. He might move up to cruiserweight, or he might retire. There's nothing left to do.
That too, that's possible.
I don't think he'll stick around. Artur Beterbiev has more than enough power that would and could carry up to cruiserweight. More so because he won't have to boil down to 175 anymore. That might be a breath of fresh air for Artur. Whereas Dmitry, he's a more lean fighter. I don't think he struggles at all to get down to 175. But Artur, at his age,
he's pushing 40. It can't be getting easier.
And so, if Artur wins the fight in October, he'll be undisputed for a little while before moving up and vacating all the titles, hitting the reset button on the division, at which point new champions will be crowned. The belts would be redistributed.
That's what I think.
If Dmitry wins, he stays at 175. If Artur wins, he moves up to cruiserweight.